looking for new places to film and new things to see, and when the United Metallurgical Company contacted us and said, hey, come down to Vixa and we'll show you the city and we'll show you our factories for free, well, hey, we couldn't resist, so we went and I had a really good time. Vixa was a tiny community until 1757 when the Batashov brothers opened the first iron ore factory there. The brothers built a large home for themselves that has been recently restored and turned into a museum. My favorite thing at the museum was a large mound of copper coins that they found during restoration. Someone not in a movie actually found real hidden treasure. Awesome. They also had plenty of things from what life was like in Vixa before modern times, like a simple worker's home with all the things they would usually use. I found it interesting that there was a special table exclusively for Dad and the elder sons underneath the family icons. Not your usual home layout. This church behind me in the center of Vixa dates all the way back to the founding of the factories here. And they wanted to make a church for sort of the bosses, for the management, the top guys at the factory, and only for them. It was sort of an exclusive church. When the revolution happened, well, people were a little bit angry with the church and it got knocked down. But now, after things have changed in Russia, they've rebuilt the church and now it's open again. But this time it's open for everybody, not just the bosses. This is the Iversky female monastery, and by female monastery I think they mean nunnery. So I think that's the correct word in English. I don't know. But anyway, so this monastery took 50 years to build this massive set of buildings. And as you see here, well, when there was the revolution, they destroyed it. So it took just one day to smash it all down. And we have the restored part, the unrestored part, and they're continuing to restore the whole thing. What's really interesting is they actually included a hospital as part of this place, but the hospital was positioned close to the church, so that way the sick people could actually hear the service, which I thought was kind of a really smart idea. So it's kind of interesting. Everything here is sort of half new and half destroyed. So actually it's very unique at the moment, something to see. That's one of my favorite things about Russia. Even in Moscow, every once in a while you'll see like a stray cat or a stray dog in a store or in like the subway, and that's one of the fun surprises of the country. I love stuff like this. This graffiti behind me is part of a very interesting project. They invited people from all over the world to come here and train young people on how to do graffiti, like nice graffiti, interesting graffiti, not just write their name on a wall. So behind me we have Russian poet Mayakovsky. Very cool. The graffiti is very random. Each building is sort of its own thing. And because it was so random, some of it really spoke to me, and well, other paintings weren't so great, or they were just too abstract. Remember, you're talking to a veteran graphic designer here, so I can be a bit picky about this stuff. This is a good program because it's fun for the participants, makes the city look nicer, it's cheap to do, and if something is really ugly, then the community can speak out and get it painted over. I mean, it's a win-win situation. No problems. Behind me is one of the very first buildings built in the Khrushchev style from back in those days. It's very important because this type of building, well, it's everywhere in the former Soviet Union. It became like the main way to build buildings, and in fact, they still build a lot of buildings this way in general. But behind me is one of the very, very first ones built in Russia, here in Vixa. Russia has one interesting wedding tradition. After people get married, right after the ceremony, they need to go to different places around the city, especially, you know, monuments and stuff like that. And this is one of Vixa's most popular ones, with this nice angel, which is right in sort of a central square. So very popular, and this is where all the newlyweds go to celebrate. I was naturally very excited to enter the factory. I have sort of an affinity for metal. I've always liked things made out of metal. As a kid, I collected coins. In college, my buddy and I would make armor and chainmail, and I used to do some welding back in high school. But that's kid stuff compared to the process of making train wheels. The Russian economy has its flaws, but it knows how to do train wheels right. The wheels will be sent all over the world and used domestically. The factory that makes the wheels was like hell on earth. And I mean that in a good way. Infernos everywhere, smoke and steam exploding around you, gray, dark metal skeletons jittering in the darkness, glowing wheels being hoisted on hooks. Awesome. If you like heavy metal music, then you actually need to go where they make literal metal at some point in your life. After the inspiring visit to see the train wheels being made, we got lunch at one of the numerous 24-hour cafeterias on factory grounds. Good classic Russian food is always in order. We bought 3 lunches together for 190 rubles, which is $6. So it's like less than $2 for all this. They treat the workers right.
Next up was going to see the MKS 5000, which is the newest part of the facility where some serious pipe is made. First, from large, somewhat irregular-sized metal slabs, the metal has to be heated till soft and then flattened out over and over again. The process is highly automated, but of course, human eyes are needed at every step of the process. I was amazed at just how much effort it takes to work metal down. We forget how hard of a material it actually is. It takes many, many passes of heating and cooling and rolling to get the pieces the way they want them to. This is not like rolling dough in your kitchen, that's for sure.
I found it really interesting that the walls of the factory open up. The walls open. Well, why did they do that? Well, that's because in here it can get really hot, especially when there's a lot of very, very hot slabs all cooling in the same place at the same time. So even in Russia, even in winter, they often open up the walls.
It's very loud in this place, so when the warning siren went off, I really didn't know what was happening. All of a sudden, these giant claws started flipping a piece of metal the size of a semi-truck right in front of me. Pretty wicked. They flip the metal so that the inspection ladies can check both sides for flaws. The next part of the facility is where they take old metal scraps and melt them down to be reused. Is being surrounded by glowing metal liquid awesome? Why yes, yes it is. This place also had that hellish vibe, with streaming waterfalls of blaze orange all over the place. Very cool. After they pour the metal out, they try to immediately flatten it out to make it workable for other divisions. You'd be amazed at how fast it can fly down the line. It is cooled with water, and then once it's at the right temperature, not too soft and not too hard, it is spooled up. Although we were on a catwalk 25 yards away from the spools, they were so hot that we could feel them passing by. No kidding, these spools give off the same heat at 25 yards as if you put your hand 5 inches above a burner on a stove. There are many cranes moving around at all times, hoisting these red-hot pieces of industry. But interestingly enough, all the crane operators were women. Unexpected. Perhaps when moving tons of material, a more patient, gentle touch is needed? Not all the spools of metal will be used in Vixa, and many of them will be sent elsewhere.
Getting back to Moscow from, say, a place near Vixa like Nizhny Novgorod is very easy on the Sapsan. I enjoyed it, but it didn't quite have the same soul as the Russian railroads of yesteryear. But it's a bit faster, and I had a good time, so I guess that's what matters. But anyways, while you're visiting either Nizhny Novgorod or Vixa, the coolest, most metal city in Russia, remember, respect Russia. I'm Tim Kirby. Take care.